Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on in. I am just going to give everybody a few minutes to get situated, grab some coffee, some water, whatever you're needing, and I'm just going to let everybody filter in so that we can be at top capacity before we begin our presentation. But we have a great presentation planned for you today, so just hold tight for about 2 minutes and I'll call you back. For those of you just filtering in, I'm just going to give everybody about 1 more minute before we begin the presentation. Thanks so much for your patience. All right, I think we should be ready to go. Again, thank you so much for joining us this morning for an awesome presentation on measuring your security program performance using Kibana and AttackIQ. We're so excited you're here this morning, and at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Joe.
All right, thank you for that, Madison, and thank you all for joining us today. What we'll be going through in this demonstration, we'll be looking at a new feature within the AttackIQ platform, and that's being able to really tell some stories and measuring your security program performance using AttackIQ. First, I get started with who we are and why you're listening to us here today. And we'll go through a brief agenda of what we're going to do and talk about the problem, then we'll get into the good stuff, right? So my name is Joe Mastromarino. I am a New York City-based sales engineer here at AttackIQ. I cover North Central, Northeast, so I got a nice area coverage here. I've been in IT for about 18 plus years, so the last year or so being here at AttackIQ. Most of my time spent in security, long financial services background, a lot of IR, forensics, SIM stuff as well. So I've certainly seen controls work and not so work all the way up and down the line with lots of requirements for reporting, which is why I'm really excited to talk about this topic here today with my co-presenter, Shravan Ravi. Shravan, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thanks, Joe. Hello, everybody. My name is Shravan Ravi. I'm based in Los Angeles, and I'm a security data scientist here at AttackIQ. I've been working for the last 7 years in cybersecurity, primarily as a security engineer, SOC analyst, machine learning engineer. But what I'm really passionate about is statistics, as you would have guessed from my title, and also leveraging data for solving real-world security problems. And I'm really delighted to be presenting along with Joe to all of you. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks for that. So first, let's talk about the problem that we're solving. Then we'll get into how we solve it, tell stories with the data, all of that really being wrapped up into one really nice demonstration that's going to show you different visualizations and different ways to tell those stories. Why we're here is that, the biggest problem is really not the budget, it's not the tooling, it's not what the attackers are doing to get in. Biggest problem we have is that we need to continue to think like the attacker, test continuously, test programmatically, and not only be able to run those tests, but be able to explain those results back to all of our other stakeholders. To that end, we really need to continue to adopt that threat-informed defense mindset, all the way through from intelligence to building the tests, running the tests, reviewing all of those results. In the past, and I know I've done this as well, we think in terms of lists, we think in terms of compliance, checking the boxes, and I get that, we have to do that. Compliance is important, it's a requirement. But in order to continue to up our game, we need to continue to think in terms of real security outcomes and in terms of metrics and graphs. If you've looked at any of our demonstrations before, you may have seen something that looks like this, an attack graph, being able to emulate attacker behavior all the way through a series of different tactics, techniques, procedures, and see how your controls perform against those. They give us lots of great charts and metrics. This is really at the assessment level, that grouping of attack scenarios. Put all these things together for a common purpose. You can get back these results. How are we doing against this campaign or this flavor of malware? But, and it is great, it's very detailed, and it's not always the story that you want to tell, because you want to be able to tell these things from a higher level perspective. So here's some stats. Here's things that we know. 82% of breaches coming from the Verizon Data Breach Investigations report. There were controls in place to stop that breach. Unfortunately, it failed. A lot of data breaches, 85% of them, involved some error of human element. And then here's a really important stat that I want you to keep in the back of your mind as we continue this conversation. Over 70% of our customers in a recent survey found that at least 25% of their controls were not working. Keep that in your mind. What quarter of your control set could you go without right now and not really know that it's not working and feel confident that you're able to continue to secure your environment? Sisyphus over here on the left is continuing to tell us what it feels like when we don't know if our controls are working or not. Let's keep pushing that boulder. Even though I don't skip leg day, that still looks like a really, really difficult exercise to continue to do. Because there are two ways of being able to figure out the effectiveness of your security program and know for certain that these things are working or not. Either you can do it or you can let somebody else do it. Personally, I would rather be testing these controls myself and be able to answer those questions with certainty. Let's think about how not knowing can affect your business. These are questions that you may be struggling with right now. I will start with that one in top center. How confident are you in your team's ability to prevent the next cyber attack? Are you testing enough? Are you testing to be able to say, yes, we can stop this flavor of ransomware, or we can stop a campaign from this attacker, and here is where in the attack lifecycle or the kill chain, however you're terming it, this is where we'd be able to stop them visually. After spending X number of millions of dollars in security controls, what percentage of these controls are failing or degraded? Those people didn't know that there were 25% of those controls that weren't working until they really started testing. How many do you think that you have in your environment that are failing or degraded? You may not know about it yet. And then what degree of assurance can you give the board or your compliance team that your organization is defended against the next cyber threat? I'll throw one more on there as well, your cyber insurer. How well can you make that assurance that you are defended, protected against the next cyber threat? So now you think about a world where you have confidence in that defense in-depth architecture because you're constantly measuring and reporting. And it also helps you drive down burnout because you know where your problems exist and where you can start to drive focus without it being a constant fire drill. You could take that systems-based approach for your entire operation to increase your effectiveness. You can confidently answer those questions when you have that broad level of reporting to be able to say, are we okay against this threat or this actor? And then you can take that technology and automate your testing so that you can validate your controls are effective without continuing to add more people, more resources, and you can do this all programmatically. That's what we do here at AttackIQ, helping you drive those better business outcomes through performance measurement of your security stack, through optimization of your tools, making sure those policies are working as they should, allowing you the information that gives you the power to make that business justification for adjustments or additional control coverage, increasing your security knowledge and your alignment and making sure that everything is set the way that it's supposed to be. Do your things, do what they say on the tin, and are they properly configured to do those things? To help you reduce that cost of your cyber insurance over time, as well as help you to meet your compliance requirements. The security optimization platform that we offer here, it's API first, open, continuous. Of course, we have that open API that you'll be able to use. That infinity symbol is there for a reason. It's part of that. It's part of that continuous security validation. It's part of that defense in depth architecture. And what you do is you plan out what these exercises are going to be. You use that MITRE ATT&CK as a rubric, as do we. You create those assessments. You run all those tests. You diagnose your problems. You go back with the information, remediate, and start all over again. And just continue to raise the bar over time. That's exactly what you want. Those deep partnerships, the pre-active security exchange, many of the vendors that you see on screen right here, of course, we enjoy relationships with those other security products, security vendors. We work all those in as integrations into our platform so that you will be able to make use of those other security technologies, understand where you're able to bring back information with regards to detections, analytics, things like that. All of that is part of the process. The MITRE Ingenuity Center for Threat Informed Defense, you see that at the bottom of the screen there. We are a founding research partner of the MITRE Ingenuity Center for Threat Informed Defense. MITRE ATT&CK is present in every part of our platform, and we work very closely with the MITRE organization on current, past, and existing projects to make sure that we can continue to advance the state of the art for the entire industry going forward. And that practice creation, you'll also see that AttackIQ Academy logo in there. AttackIQ Academy, well over 30,000 students enrolled today. It is a completely free resource that we provide to the entire cybersecurity industry. Please feel free to sign up, academy.attackiq.com. You can sign up for free, take courses related to purple teaming, breach and attack simulation, cybersecurity leadership. There's so much great information in there, instructor-led, high-quality training that we are constantly adding to and refining what we have. As far as what the infrastructure looks like for an AttackIQ deployment, if you've never seen it before, and we are going to look at some of it today, the center of the screen represents the machine that we will be using to perform our demo. It's the machine that you will use when you interact with the AttackIQ platform. It's your workstation right now. You use a standard web browser to access AttackIQ in typically a SaaS tenancy over there on the right-hand side of the screen. That will hold all of the content, over 3,000 plus attack scenarios that we have hosted within the platform today that we continue to operate, curate, make sure that those are all written and cover as many of those different types of attack scenarios as you would need. All of those get organized into assessments to accomplish use cases so that you have content you can immediately run out of the box and immediately get value from the platform. That will also hold the agents that you can use in order to run these tests in your environment. Windows, Mac, Linux agents, extremely lightweight, do not hook into the kernel, do not provide protective capabilities. What they will do is check in with that platform, ask for work to be done. Once there is work to be done, it gets those attack scenarios, downloads them, executes them, cleans themselves up afterwards, does not leave any lasting remnants inside of your environment, other than maybe some detections, which is what you expect it to do, but they'll always clean up after themselves. These are absolutely safe to run in production environments as well. That's where you're going to get your best results. That'll let us know whether or not things are prevented or not prevented, something to keep in the back of your mind, especially as we look at reporting. Where are we stopping things and where are we not stopping things? On the left-hand side, you will see that Integration Manager. The Integration Manager is something that you deploy somewhere in your environment as it makes sense to interface with your existing security stack. Did you see the information in your SIM? Did you see those through direct integrations with perhaps your EDR or your firewall? Did we see these things occur? And that will let us know whether or not things were detected. Again, something else to keep in the back of your mind as we watch the demonstration of reporting, because these are all things that we want to know. Did our controls stop what they were supposed to stop, and did they see what they were supposed to see? That's exactly what we want out of this. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is, well, how do we start to show all of this off? I was going to make a whole lot of slides for this, but really you're here for a demo. You want to see it, and you're saying to yourself, well, get on with it. Let's just get over to the demonstration. So to that end, what I'm going to do is I'm now going to shift the presenter screen over to my colleague Shravan, and we are going to get started with the demonstration. So Shravan, are you ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay, passing over to you.
Okay, is my screen visible?
We can see you, buddy.
Perfect. Thanks, Joe. So as Joe was alluding to, the cohesive connecting thread. Yeah, the cohesive connecting thread that makes sense to the customer is a story that we want to convey. And what better way to convey the story than through interactive visualizations? What you see in front of you is the AttackIQ platform. And how you can access the dashboard section is by clicking the three horizontal lines on the top left of the screen and navigating to dashboard. What you're going to see in front of you are the set of 5 out-of-the-box dashboards that are available out of the box. That's the name for this. And these are all designed to give different flavors of what you can achieve through the reporting in the platform. I'll spend a few minutes walking through each of them and just trying to show what kind of different visualizations we do have. Before I do that, there are a few salient features that are present across all these dashboards. And those are, first, the ability to add filters to select the desired subset of the data, the ability to view results only for the selected time range. You have absolute as well as relative time presets already available. By default, it's the last 3 months or the last 90 days of data that you see the visualizations for. You have the ability to maximize any panel in case you want a clearer view of the visualization. And you also have these descriptions for each panel, the IE symbol. And so every panel does a succinct description of what the panel is designed to do. With that being said, let me get into the first dashboard, executive summary. And now executive summary, think of it as just 2 words, actionable insights. Basically, this dashboard is trying to give you the high-level details that an executive might find useful. It's not going to, we're not going deep into the woods, we're not talking about granular details. We have other dashboards that delve into a lot more details, but these are the high-level details. For example, what might an executive want in terms of the MITRE attack? An executive might want to know what are the riskiest MITRE attack tactics or techniques. Now we have just that broken down from a prevention and a detection standpoint. Which are the riskiest MITRE attack tactics and which are the riskiest MITRE attack tactics that you have not prevented and that you have not detected. So you can see here persistence has not been prevented for across almost 1,000 scenario runs. And again, persistence has not been even detected across almost 1,000 scenario runs. As compared to the other tactics, that is something that your organization is probably the most susceptible to. Going perhaps a bit more into detail, you might want to know which techniques within those tactics you're the most susceptible to. And we have that same information broken down from both a non-prevention as well as a non-detection standpoint. Earlier in the demo, Joe alluded to this point of about 25% of an organization's security controls not working effectively, and organizations spending X amount of dollars, up to say $6 million a year on security controls. Now, you've been running all these simulations. Wouldn't you want to know which security controls are performing good, or how security controls are performing? Are they performing the way they are supposed to be? what this nifty little heat map is trying to tell you is just that. Now, every square box that you see here depicts the number of non-detections per technology aggregated by week. So for example, Sentinel-1, if I can just pick on that, there seems to be having a high number of non-detections in early June. And as you can see, over time, it seems to be getting lighter. So perhaps some policies have been put into place, or perhaps some mitigations have been performed, which is a good thing. And that's what you ideally you'd like to see, that even if it starts off darker, you'd like to see the heat map move towards lighter shades, which indicates that the number of non-detections are reducing. Now, I do want to mention that this is a demo environment. I'm not trying to single out Sentinel-1 or any other vendor. AttackIQ doesn't make any such statements. This is purely a demo environment, and this is just so I'm showing it for demo purposes. Just as we saw how these perform on a weekly basis, if you'd like to see something at a higher level, you can look at it on a monthly basis. And it's still a heat map, so it still tries to convey the same information. Just a single glance at this can tell you exactly what you need to know without spending hours looking through reports or looking at Excel sheets and trying to figure out which technologies are performing well or not. So we have a few more visualizations here, but in the interest of time, I'll move over to the other dashboards. But please feel free to ask any questions at the end of the presentation if you do have. Next, we'll look at the security posture. Think of the security posture as giving you a bird's eye view of the environment. So this helps you answer questions like, like how many activities have been done, just basic stats, how many test points or assets have been tested, assessments, scenarios. This also helps you answer questions like, how's my environment doing progressively over month? So month-to-month view of the environment broken down by both the prevention as well as the detection status. You can answer questions like, how does one assessment compare against the next progressively over time? Now, again, you can use the add filter option to add any assessment of your choosing to see how they compare against each other. But there's also another way to filter for the subset of data. I did mention at the beginning you can use the add filter, but I would also like to draw your attention to this. Any panel, or rather every panel that you see here, every section of every panel is clickable and gives you the ability to further filter down. So let's say I'm looking at the month of June, and I click on this section that says not prevented. You see automatically that filter options have been provided for you. You can either filter on the month or the prevention outcome, which says not prevented. Let's say I want to filter for this panel for the month of June. The moment I apply this, not only the panel that I selected, not only this panel has been shifted to June, but the entire dashboard changes to reflect that. So instead of the 10 test points that have been tested in the last 90 days, you can see that in the month of June, there were only 5 test points that were tested. And the entire dashboard is now filtered to give you that, to reflect that filter that you have added, which is the month of June. So just wanted to provide that as a caveat. Moving on. When it comes to scenario,
I was going to say that's great. I love the ability to be able to pivot around using the data that's there. That's a super powerful feature there, Shravan.
Yes, it certainly is, Joe. Definitely. Moving on to scenario outcomes. So scenarios can have different outcomes: prevented, not prevented, detected, not detected. What we're trying to show with these 4 visualizations over here is the ability to see each combination. So you can see a combination of prevented and detected, which is indicated by the green bar over here, or not prevented and not detected, which is indicated by the red bar, or prevented and not detected, not detected and not prevented. Ideally, what you like to see is the green bar meeting the beige bar. The beige bar, which indicates the total number of runs. You'd like to see the prevented and detected scenario runs get as close to the total number of runs as possible. And you'd like to see the non-prevented and non-detected runs be as close to the x-axis as possible, which indicates that the number of non-detected and non-prevented runs is decreasing over time. Now, what if you wanted to compare all of these against each other? This view doesn't exactly tell you. I mean, of course, you can hover over each thing and count the number and compare that. But to make it easier, we have this combined scenario outcome trend. And this panel combines the 4 outcomes that you saw earlier. So what you'd like to see here again, if you hover over any such point here, is you see the combination, the total number of runs, which is indicated by the beige bar. You see the prevented and detected runs, as non-prevented and non-detected, each of which is depicted using these trend lines. And ideally, what you'd want to see is that the green trend line keeps increasing, which indicates that the number of preventions and detections is increasing, which is certainly not the case here. Also, you'd want to see the number of non-preventions and non-detections decreasing, which again is not the case here. You can see the number of non-preventions and non-detections either remains constant with periodic dips here and there. So again, just looking at this one panel, you get to know how your environment has been performing over the last, say, 2 or 3 months. And that gives you, that tells you exactly where you need to focus, what you need to be asking your team to do better. The other thing I'd like to point out here is the total number of runs, which is indicated by the beige bar, has been decreasing, which would indicate that the number of testing, the amount of testing that is being done has been reducing. And you certainly don't want to see the amount of testing that's being done reducing, especially considering that the red trend line is increasing. You'd like to see, if not constant, you'd like to see more number of runs being done progressively. Just one point about the asset overview. Now, you've been running, Joe alluded to it earlier in the AttackIQ architecture slide, that you have been running these across so many assets. You've been running, you or other members of your team, if you're a customer, or if not, you understand the picture anyway. There have been emulations run across, say, perhaps tens or hundreds of thousands of assets. At the end of the day, wouldn't you like to know which assets or which test points are the most critical, especially if it is something that is in a production zone? So that's exactly what this panel is trying to tell you, the riskiest assets. And how do we quantify risk? We talk about risk as the assets that have the maximum number of non-preventions and non-detected runs. For example, the Windows 10 machine over here has almost an 85% out of total runs, almost as an 85% non-prevention and non-detected runs. That tells you that this asset is certainly at risk, and you can immediately take some action or the immediate reaction against this and see why it is that this asset is so at risk. Likewise, when we talk about errored assets, errors can be because of a number of reasons. It could be because of low disk space. It could be because of maybe some OS mismatch or any such thing. What this tells you is which assets are erroring the most number of times. You don't want to be running all these emulations only to understand that it's finally been errored. You'd at least like some outcome, wouldn't you? Either a positive or a negative outcome. But at the end of the day, if it's just going to be erroring out, that's not doing you any good. So once you see which assets are erroring and whether they have a very high proportion of errors, you can make some calls to the team and try to figure out why these errors are occurring and what you need to do to remediate against this. Finally, looking at the scenario overview, this just tells you which are the top non-prevented scenarios, top non-detected scenarios. After running all these emulations, to get to the meat of the matter, these scenarios are the ones that you need to focus on and concentrate on the most. And also it tells you which scenarios you are able to prevent and detect, which indicates that your policies are working against certain scenarios. So far, we have looked at executive summary and security posture. Moving on to security controls. This gives you an overview of security control categories and technologies. It gives you a breakdown based on prevention and detection status for each security category. For example, just looking at it visually, you can see that next generation firewall, content filtering, IDS, IPS only have non-detections. They do not have a single detected thing or detected run, which indicates that certainly the policies that you have in place at this point are not able to prevent any or not able to detect any of the scenarios pertaining to these categories, which can tell you immediately that that's a red flag and these need to be addressed.
This is telling me at a glance, I have endpoint security controls, I have network security controls, all of these things need attention just by looking at one screen.
Exactly. Next, moving on to the security control products non-detections. I think, Joe, I think you've explained this to me really well. Would you want to take a stab at this?
Yeah, so one of the things that I always look at here, and part of this is me kind of hearkening back to my SIM days, is you want to see where your controls are coming up short with being able to detect things inside of your environment. And what this graph is telling you is that, oh, okay, sorry, I lost the screen for a sec. Month over month, where are we losing that context? And I'll take July as the example here on the left, that green portion of the split pie. What it's telling me is that, yes, I have some direct stuff from Carbon Black that I'm not seeing, but what I'm seeing overwhelmingly is that I have issues with what's coming through my SIM, because the integration manager can also pull in detections through a SIM integration. And why am I missing stuff from Carbon Black, from CrowdStrike Felton, from SentinelOne, from Panorama? Why am I missing all of these things? This could be indicative of some type of breakdown somewhere in the logging pipeline. It could be something else that may be wrong with my SIM. So the controls might be working, but I don't have that visibility into the detections, the logs, anything like that. So that's another really good indicator that I may want to take a look more closely at my logging pipeline and make sure that my SIM is working as it should be.
Perfect. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
I see we are running low on time, so I'll just give a brief overview of each of the remaining two dashboards. Next thing is the MITRE ATT&CK dashboard. And as the name suggests, this is everything to do with MITRE ATT&CK, tactic, techniques, sub-techniques. We have it broken down by prevention and detection status. And as you can see here, we have the 12 MITRE ATT&CK tactics ordered the way they appear in the MITRE ATT&CK framework. And for each of the tactics, there's a pie chart that tells you, just at a glance, it can tell you what's your posture against each of the tactics. Looking at this, you can see initial access has only been not prevented or canceled. You don't have a single prevented for initial access. So similarly, defense evasion has a very high proportion of non-prevented runs compared to prevented or others. Again, the idea of all these reporting visualizations is for you to not spend hours or a long time poring over data to try to figure out what are the pain points that need to be addressed, but rather telling you at a glance that, hey, these are the things that you need to look into further. Now, not only tactics, we have it broken down by techniques as well. And if you're someone like me, you know what T1078 does, but you might not know which name it correlates to. So we have these technique names as well. So you can correlate the IDs to the names right here. Similarly, you have it even for a sub-technique level. And likewise, you have the same thing for detection. You have the detection status breakdown by tactics, by techniques, and by technique names and sub-techniques.
Yeah, and this is also giving us the tactic names in order. So you'll be able to tell by looking at this dashboard through all the testing that we're doing, are we shifting further left in our efforts to be able to thwart the attackers? Are we able to stop them earlier in the attack lifecycle, or are they still getting through into the later stages? And that's exactly what this dashboard can tell you by looking at all of your activity at a glance.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Joe. We looked at the risky tactics and techniques in the earlier executor summary dashboard. Over here, we go a bit further. We look at even risky sub-techniques from a prevention and detection standpoint. And we also have the MITRE details table, which has all the details about techniques, assessment scenarios, which assets they were run on. And this is something that you can easily download as a CSV and perhaps share with other teams or look into it further if you wish to. That brings us to the last dashboard, which is the threat assessment. This basically covers the threat categories that are not covered as part of MITRE ATT&CK. So this could include things like threat actors, US cert alerts, ransomware, malware, phishing, you name it. And what we have here is a prevention status breakdown, a detection status breakdown, and the riskiest threat actors for each of these categories. So APT29, for example, which we know has caused havoc in the past, is something that this particular organization seems to be susceptible to because it has a lot of non-prevented and non-detected runs. So yeah, that's I think that's about it. Do you have anything else to add for this dashboard, Joe?
Yeah, there's one more thing I'd add about this slide and this dashboard and how much I love it is when you look at the way that we have the information tagged, and this is how we have the scenarios tagged within the platform is, like you said, by the actor group, by the flavor of ransomware and malware, by the US cert alert that's right here. I've certainly been in that position, and I'm sure just about anybody else that may be watching this now or watching the recording has been in the situation of somebody comes to you and says, we have this new vulnerability, or we have this attacker group, or we have this malware. Have we tested for it? Are we susceptible to it? Do we need to do work against it? If you've already gone through and said, yeah, we started doing some of this testing and either we're good or here's where we need to start making improvements, that helps you do your job so much more effectively because you have the data to back it up to say whether or not you are safe and then what work needs to be performed from there. One question we did get, Shravan, from the audience here, and I think you started to answer it. Let's look at it one more time. They asked about sharing the source of the data, about tracking really anything, but we can share the data and we can look at the underlying data of any one of these widgets. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's certainly true. I'm sorry if I didn't answer that earlier. You always have the download as CSV option, and that tells you exactly like what how this the download as CSV tells you what data. Oh, I don't think I'm sharing that screen. Just give me a minute.
There you go. Now we see it. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So it tells you, like, for example, what threat actors, what's the prevention status, what is the scenario runs for each of these things.
Okay.
So you can see that information. Also, we have this. Yeah, we also have the ability to add drill downs to any of these visualizations. So you can click on a panel, and that could take you to a different view, and you could look at the data in more detail over there.
Okay, yeah, so we can drill further into the data and we can grab the underlying source data for any of those visualizations. Hopefully that answers the question that you had. If there are any others, please feel free to insert them into the chat and we'll get them answered for you.
Doesn't look like we have any more questions at this time. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this morning. Again, if you have any questions that come up after this, you can always reach out to us at AttackIQ. But until then, have a great day, and we hope to speak with you soon. Thank you so much.